Oh, maybe hit the mute, Matt. I can hear the keys. Hello, hello. Hi, Jay. Hi, Armand. Oh, there's Eric. Michael. Howdy, folks. And just so you know, you're coming. Oh, yeah. Oh, you might not. I guess you can, if you're co-host, you can unmute. But Yifang, Matt.
Yeah, I may need to change people to panelists. So if I'll
yeah.
do that as they come in.
Okay, great.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Yifang.
Yeah, I think I got
Cool.
some of them too. Okay.
Well, I'm not going to look so much at the chat or whatnot. So.
I saw this is already recorded, so I think I don't need to take care about the recording part, right? For this
That's
one.
right.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So colleagues, if I'm looking and seeing correctly, I think it looks like folks from the waiting room have been brought in.
I think you're good to start anytime, Greg.
Okay, great. Welcome to the C3.ai DTI computing environment orientation. This is one in a series of webinars that are designed to help inform prospective applicants in this call for proposals. The first two webinars were held earlier this week. Those focused on the research topic, the energy research topic, and the mechanics of the proposal submission. And this and the two info sessions to follow are going to focus on the computing environment that's being made available to awardees. For today's meeting, we're going to give an introduction to our DTI Devops team. We're going to give a complete overview of the computing and computational resources available to awardees. We're going to talk about the supporting resources, and we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. The DTI Devops team is composed of staff at UC Berkeley and at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, NCSA. And this is the roster of the tech team at DTI. And those of us whose names are indented here, we're the folks who engage directly with researchers, awarded researchers for their work. My name is Greg Merritt. I'm the DevOps lead on the team. I looked after particularly the cloud infrastructure of our deployments. And a number of my colleagues here are going to take portions of today's presentations and will introduce themselves briefly as they begin their turns. The roles and services that the DTI tech team, the roles and services that we provide include things like consultations on computing resource use, helping a research team identify the right tool for the job, so to speak. We help with the support of the C3AI Technologies from nuts and bolts operations like account access. We develop and maintain training materials. We hold office hours through the year for awardees to pop in and get help with using the C3AI technologies. We're available for troubleshooting. And for teams that have perhaps more complex needs for their deployments or looking at other very specific issues, we, the DTI Devops team, serve as your interface to C3AI personnel, engineers, data scientists, ops personnel at the C3AI company, and bring them in as colleagues to help with such things. We also support the use of complementary resources, HPC and Azure. And something new for this round of proposals that we're actually pretty excited about is you have the opportunity to effectively have a DevOps staff member from DTI become a part of your team for the research. In fact, you would be getting a dedicated fraction of our time. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So now I'd like to begin our overview of computational resources that are available to awardees. So here's the three main sections we're going to talk about. So the first is the C3AI Technologies. Now, we want to particularly draw your attention to these. Why? Well, for these proposals, researchers are asked to consider how they would use C3AI Technologies as part of the work plan in their proposal. And so we, my colleagues and I on the DTI tech team are here to help you understand how to do that before you submit your proposal. So both through this information session, the two to follow, and some special office hours we'll be holding. So that's something you'll definitely want to tune into as we go through. There are also another category of computational resources is the high performance computing from NERSC in Berkeley and NCSA in Illinois, and also Microsoft Azure Cloud Resources. And we use those in a couple of ways, both to deploy the C3AI Suite and C3 Ex Machina, as well as direct use cloud resources to complement that work. And now I'd like to hand it over to Armand Butt, an engineer at C3AI. Hello, Armand. And I see your, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me, but my name is Armand Butt, and I'm a solutions engineer at C3. As Greg was mentioning, for this round of proposals, using one or many of the technologies that we have available at C3 as part of a requirement. And for today, I just want to give like a really high level overview to get the gears turning for your team as to what is possible. As Greg also had mentioned, next week we have 2 more webinars that will deep dive into the technology specifically, so you get to learn the nitty gritty and have a more concrete maybe use case of what's going on. But today is really just supposed to give a high level overview of our technology and what we do, and at least get the gears turning on how you can use in your proposal. So to start off, C3AI, as you might have seen from the other webinars or from our portal, we are the world's leading provider of AI, IoT, and big data applications. So what this means, I'm not sure if Greg, you can go to the next slide, or if I have the control. Oh, there we go. So yeah, so how we were able to accomplish that task was via us building the C3AI Suite. And the C3AI Suite is a platform as a service that helps enterprise companies build across the full AI lifecycle. So we have tools and technologies that basically help operationalize machine learning and applied machine learning models in the real world. So we have tools that are related to being able to unify a bunch of disparate data sources, being able to do feature engineering on that data, then actually training that data and models, supporting either Python or R, and then being able to actually productionize it and even build an application on top of that. So we support the entire AI lifecycle. And what we're hoping is that these tools, even though they were built for enterprise companies and that they'd actually really help the researchers and your use cases for being able to accelerate this AI lifecycle that your team might be going through during your project. So we know that data scientists and researchers can come from a variety of backgrounds, from technical to non-technical. And kind of one of the more amazing things we've done on the platform is we have multiple interfaces of which a data scientist or researcher can actually interact with the platform and the underlying data. So this ranges from traditional coding, in an IDE with Python, JavaScript, or R, to more higher level low code services like our Jupyter Notebook service that's on the platform. And we have a bunch of APIs that can do kickoff trainings and other normalization of data with very little code, as well as I feel the most interesting is we actually have no code solutions as well. So our C3 Ex Machina product is entirely a no code drag and drop tool that you can build data pipelines in, train machine learning models on, and have that visualized as well. So we support all these different interfaces. So we hope that, regardless of, your technical abilities on your team, that you'll be able to contribute to your project, regardless of that, with the tools we have available. So yeah, just a few examples of using the AI suite. So one being data exploration, ingestion, and processing. Regardless of where your data is or whatever the format may be, CSV, Parquet, even if it's web scraping, the platform supports a variety of connectors, and we can bring in your data from all your different data sources and bring it into a unified data model. And that data model can be accessible either through C3 Ex Machina, which is our low code tool, or also even the C3 Jupyter notebooks as well. And as part of that unified data model, you can actually see those data pipelines and the data lineage of the data you're bringing in through our Integrated Development Studio, IDS. So there's a lot of powerful tooling available to here in terms of data preparation, ingestion, and even exploration. Likewise, once you actually have all your data in a format that makes sense, it's time to get to work in the sense of being able to develop machine learning models. So, the C3AI Suite, where we don't have any crazy proprietary models, like we support all of the open source ML model libraries, Scikit, Keras, PyTorch. In addition to that, we support a lot of the cloud services machine learning models, whether it's like AWS or Azure. And we've encapsulated all these different libraries into a unified API that we call the ML pipelines. So these pipelines, they're composable, they're very easy to put together and have these complex machine learning training pipes, and then being able to train, have the different model versioning across your team, keep the accuracy metrics, and then being able to plot them out. So you can actually see that over time, depending on what data you've trained it on, has your model improved or not based on key metrics that you defined. So it's really cool. I haven't seen anything like it elsewhere. And it can be done in Python, JavaScript, or even R. So regardless of where your skill set lies, you can actually contribute to being able to build these complex pipelines. And likewise, once you have a pipeline that is, hey, this is the model we want to use if you wanted to productionize the application, it's actually available via a REST API automatically. So if you do have a model that you would like to have a use case where maybe you're interacting with users on a cell phone, that's extraordinarily easy to do using our platform. And last but certainly not least, once you've actually done all this work, maybe you'd want to visualize the end result. So We have a tool, UI Designer, and it's a no-code component library based on React. So you can build very powerful applications and dashboards. Likewise, obviously, as part of the process of the data exploration or even the ML training, we support all of the open source Python libraries within our Jupyter notebooks. So you can plot and visualize all of your data as it's coming along, and even in R. And likewise, our Ex Machina low-code tool, there's built-in plots and visualizations that are part of the project themselves. So everything you need to visualize the data and even export it is all within Ex Machina as well. And as Greg mentioned earlier, we're going to be using Azure Cloud to support DTI. And one of the common questions we get is that if I use the C3AI Suite, am I able to actually use the underlying Azure services? And the answer is yes. Our platform is like entirely open and extensible, as well as composable. So if there are any underlying Azure services that your team might want to use, whether it be high level like a Power BI use case, or even using some of the different data stores, or Azure IoT Hub, by using the AI Suite, you're not losing access to any of the underlying tooling as well. We have integrations with all of the ones you see here, plus more. So if there's any use case where you need the underlying Azure technologies, you can still use the AI Suite and have access to them. And yeah, this is a list of use cases that the DevOps team and I had come up with just to get the gears turning. I believe these slides will be available after the presentation, so I'm not going to go through each one of these points, but I hope this at least gave a nice high-level intro of kind of the different tools that you'll have available as part of this call for proposals. And likewise, we're going to be having 2 additional webinars, which will actually go into the nitty-gritty details of the different tools that I talked about, so we can kind of iron out maybe some of those use cases. But this slide is just to leave you something with to just start thinking going into the next webinars.
Cool. Thank you, Armand. And next, support resources.
Hi, I'm Matt Krafschick. I'm from the NCSA component of the DTI, and I'm going to start by, I'll go over a little bit about the DTI developed and C3 developed support resources. So next slide. So the first thing DTI, we curate you might say a summary page of useful information for researchers who are trying to learn the C3AI Suite. So we maintain this wiki, which includes introductions, guides for specific components of C3, as well as lots of links to official C3 documentation as needed. We also include links to Azure, NCSA Blue Waters, and NERSC computing resources. This material is constantly being updated and evolving as needs are, maybe some researchers are encountering new problems, and we find maybe a researcher-directed explanation might be very useful. We will add that to the wiki page. So check back frequently if you, as more pages will be added. So next slide. This is an example of our quick start guide. For example, we've got headers with quick links to various parts of the guide. We've got a summary of terminology in the suite, so you can orient yourself. Specific usage of the suite, and embedded tutorial videos occasionally to help make certain aspects of the platform more clear. Next slide. So from the C3 managed resources, there's the C3 community page. This is a Discord forum which is publicly visible. Anyone can navigate to this page and search the posted topics to find issues that other people have been having with the platform, and then C3 engineer responses. Engineers are quite quick to respond here, this is the best place to ask them for ask directly C3 engineers. Once you are a part of, if you're awarded as part of this call for proposals, then you will get a C3 account and you'll be able to log in and post questions yourself. So next slide. Extent to this, so again, available to awardees, we have the official C3 developer documentation. Here we have some images showing their page. They've got a lot of links directly to their documentation. We have a sort of overview page where they include guides, like very broad level guides to getting to know C3. These are mostly geared towards enterprise users, and so this is why we maintain a wiki as well. Our wiki is sort of more tailored towards researchers, or at least that's our goal. Their documentation also includes search features. So if you have a type or a concept you want to know more about, you can click the search button and search for that particular concept. Next. C3 also offers official training courses, and these can come, one aspect of getting an award with us is we have a dedicated training cluster. So while you're learning how to use C3, you can take the coursework from any location, including here through the C3 courses, and launch and run examples on our training cluster. In addition to that, you can sign up for the official C3 course, and you'll be given access to their personal their own training cluster, and access to their online. They have online office hours where you can ask C3 engineers questions you have about specific aspects of their platform. And they have numerous courses that cover a variety of topics. They've got fundamental courses which build up all your necessary tooling to understand and use C3, as well as data science courses and more advanced application courses. Next. Okay, and now I'm going to hand it off to Weddy, who's going to talk about HPC resources.
Thanks, Matt.
Hi, my name is Weddy Jackson. I'm a research programmer at NCSA at the University of Illinois and a member of the DTI Devops team. I'll give you a quick overview of the large-scale, high-performance computing resources that are available to C3AI awardees. For awardees that have experience with HPC resources, we believe that access to a supplemental HPC resource can be beneficial to their work. The awardees wanting to use a supplemental HPC resource are expected to have a basic working knowledge of Unix command line, shell scripting, and common Unix utilities. Awardees are also expected to have a general understanding of the batch job submission system to effectively use these HPC resources. Awardees will have access to 2 general levels of support. The first basic level of support will be centered around the HPC resource itself, which would include account access, user environment setup, and that would be provided by the local support staff of that HPC resource. The second level would be a more advanced level of support, which could include data management, code parallelization examples, and the like, and that would be provided by the DevOps team. I guess next slide. The 2 resources would be the National Center for Supercomputing Applications System, Blue Waters, and NERSC, the National Energy Research Scientific Computing Center's CORI system. And these are some of the details of those systems of what would be available for that system, for each resource, if you decided to use that as a supplement to your C3AI award. And then I think next would be Greg.
Thank you, Weddy. So for the last category of resource, that's Azure Cloud. And Microsoft very generously contributes $2 million in Azure cloud computing capacity, or credits if you like, annually. So this is a resource that we use in two ways. One is to run the C3AI platform deployments. Those run on the Azure cloud. And also, as Armand discussed a bit in his presentation on the platform, there's also opportunities to use Azure resources in a complementary way. So there's a list here of examples of those kinds of resources, and some of those are repeated here on this slide with some pictures. So you can imagine a scenario where you've got some data storage needs, and you're working on data ingress into the platform or data egress. You've got to gather your data somewhere. Azure has data storage capacities. If you need you have a graduate student who has a modest laptop, but they need a workstation that is more high performance. Azure can provide virtual workstations that can be accessed over the network from even a modest computer. Perhaps you have some very specialized applications, whether for compute or a web application, and that needs its own home in a virtual machine. Azure can do that too, and just the full range of cloud resources that you might be familiar with are available in Azure. And before we get to the Q&A, we want to remind you about opportunities for additional information. That includes next week on Tuesday, February 23rd, we're going to have a deeper dive into the use of the C3AI Suite, so you can actually get a look at what it's like to use it. And then following on Tuesday, March 2nd, we're going to have an information session on C3AI Ex Machina, which is probably about as close as you can get to doing your full ML AI pipeline without writing code. And to complement these, we have a series of 4 office hours starting Tuesday, March 2nd. These are intended to be, these are dedicated to interested applicants. We invite you to come into these open Zoom sessions and chat with us, the DTI Devops Tech team. Chat with us about these technologies, help us understand a little bit about your computing needs, and we can talk to you about how you might meet some of those needs with the resources we have. And we want to especially encourage folks who are interested in having potentially one of the DTI Devops team members become a part of your work plan, to actually have some of our time dedicated. This would need to go into your proposal. So we would love to chat with folks about that. We've also got some links here on this page. If you want to email questions about any aspect of the proposals, the research topics, the process, or the tech, you can funnel those through proposals at c3dti.ai. There's a reminder link to the call for proposals itself. And also, if you want to take a look at the training resources that Matt described in his portion, if you go to developer.c3.ai, it's a simple page, and there's a link at the bottom which will take you to our wiki. And if folks have questions they want to put in the chat, I think our meeting format, I'm not sure that it will let folks unmute themselves, but feel free to put questions in the chat. And that concludes our main body of presentation. I think you can also raise your hand in the meeting, so feel free to do that. But if anyone else has anything to add, whether for this audience or for the sake of the recording, anything that we left out or that you thought to add from any of my colleagues, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, people want to ask questions instead of the chat, just push the raise your hand button and we can unmute you.
Greg, there was one thing that I did want to add
Sure.
that it might not have been clear when I was presenting. But with each of the different toolings that we showed for at least C3, you don't have to follow the end-to-end flow necessarily to be able to use the technology. So if you already have your data in a way that's conducive for your training, you can pick up the training on the platform and then have your data be wherever it currently is. Likewise, maybe you have a model that you want to train on the supercomputing cluster, but you'd like to build an application around that after it's done training, then you can pick it up from that part of the aspect on the platform. So you don't have to follow the full end-to-end flow necessarily, but we support the end-to-end flow, obviously, if you need it.
Thanks for that, Armand. And I think what you just described relates to this slide that shows the whole flow, but you're drawing attention to the fact that if you've explored your data, you've got your data, and you're working on your model development, you can tap in at that point and continue on through, for example.
Yep, exactly.
Cool, thanks.
Hey, Greg, a question came in on the Q&A about access after 1 year.
Right. So their access to the platform is expected to be able to, for folks, researchers who have used it, to extend access to that platform.
I think the answer, yeah, is just that if you're actually actively using the platform, you won't be cut off and you'll be continued to get access to use it after the 1 year award.
And this is the kind of thing that we would work through from the beginning, middle, and duration of your award. So no one has any surprises, and we would look to support and not just cut you off for ongoing work.
So another question came in, are DTI resources and support for commercial projects for a fee?
I don't quite understand the nuance of that question. I don't know if Satya can refine, or if some of my colleagues are seeing it. Our DTI resources for commercial projects. So if it's meant to ask whether the DTI staff and resources are available as a pay for service, I believe the answer would be no. We're intended to be here just simply to support the awardees as part of this research program. Cool.
So I just wanted to, add, I think adding on to Armand's point there is, we really want to meet researchers where they are in their own workflows, right? So if they've got something that's already started, we want to be able to sort of pick up and help them where they are, not to sort of expect them to, rewrite or redo things that they've done. So I think that that's a key, thing to think about is what are your current challenges in your technology? What are you worried about scale? Are you worried about just starting using AI? I mean, what are the things that really are important to you? And think about those in the proposal, maybe as ways to interface with the technologies. So to that end, we're gonna be customize our support to your needs in particular. And I can imagine, given the topic of energy, there may be a fair number of proposals where you don't have maybe any technical expertise. I just want to remind you the Ex Machina might be the right thing for you. So I really encourage you to come to that talk. My expectation is a lot of these proposals might want to rely heavily on that for data exploration and discovery.
And I see a question from Pan Zhao. Does C3AI Suite or Azure support running of a simulator, which will be used in our project? On our own computer, we need to download and install this simulator. So there are a couple of different options. This tends to be depending on the software itself. Oftentimes it can depend on, strangely enough, the software's licensing mechanism. And also it's the way that the software might interface with via APIs for data and processing. So that's the kind of thing I would Pan, I would encourage you, if you wanted to come to, especially to one of our office hour sessions, starting, I believe the date is March 2nd, Tuesday, March 2nd. If you wanted to come prepared to, we could even, have you share your screen and we could look together and understand in a little bit more specific detail. But this is the kind of thing that we would work with research groups on. But it's great for you to ask before the proposal. And we'd love to talk with you about that. Cool. See you then. Any other questions? Well, I think we should probably, at least since we've got plenty of time, leave the meeting open for a little bit in case someone is composing or thinking of a question. Well, so any other, if colleagues, should we hang on a bit? Should we wrap it up, or what do you think?
I think we're safe to wrap it up.
Cool. Okay. Well, I want to thank folks for joining. Thank my colleagues for helping out with this presentation, and we will hope to see some of you next week at the follow-up.